Well, the Prime Minister is here. You were grimacing watching that on a couple of occasions.
I think it was, look, I'm absolutely right that businesses owe their success to their hard work and all credit to them. But I think it's rather unfair to say that we're not seeing real job growth here in the Northwest. We are. It's correct that 200 more people have been getting a job every day for the last year, and it's also true that actually the Northwest, in terms of jobs growth, has been doing better than the rest of the country for the last quarter, and most of the new jobs being created, in fact 9 out of 10, are full-time jobs. So I'm not complacent. There's a lot more to do, but we need to stick to our long-term economic plan. It is delivering the low inflation, the low taxes, getting the deficit down, all those things we need to create the right climate for jobs and growth.
That's great if they are full-time jobs, but you will admit, I'm sure, there are many people here, more in this part of the world than anywhere else, that are paid below the minimum wage. There are many people here who are having to use food banks. There are many people here who are on 0 hours contracts. So although some people, quite rightly, and there'll be people watching this, there are people who contact us all the time who say that government is doing a good job. There are others who are feeling really, really squeezed.
And I understand that we're acting on all of those fronts. On 0 hours contracts, we're the first government ever to legislate to say you cannot have exclusive 0 hours contracts that prevent people from working elsewhere. On the minimum wage, it's going up under this government. It's now £6.50. I look forward to £7 and beyond.
Maybe a living wage.
Well, for people on the minimum wage, also, we're cutting their taxes because, of course, you can now earn over £10,000 before you start paying income tax. So someone on minimum wage working full-time has seen their income tax bill come down by 2/3. But look, there's more to do. You had an apprentice on your film. We've created more apprenticeships here in the Northwest than anywhere else in the country.
But he said all his other friends couldn't find a job. His friends were struggling. He was a lucky one.
Well, he's one of 335,000 people who've had an apprenticeship here in the Northwest, but we want to go further. We've created 2 million in this Parliament. I want us to create 3 million in the next Parliament. But we'll only be able to do these things if we stick to the plan that's got the deficit down, that's got inflation low, that's cutting people's taxes, that's helping business to grow. And you know, what I want to see, and why I'm here today, is I don't want another recovery like the ones we've had in the past, where the growth and jobs have been in London and the South East. I want the Northwest and every part of our country to benefit properly from this recovery.
Has the Northwest then been forgotten? All right, there's been 5 years of a coalition. Prior to that, there was 13 years of Labour. But George Osborne today talked about 30 or 40 years in which this part of the world has been allowed to drift behind. A lot of that time under a Conservative government. Did you get it wrong last time?
I think all governments before this one haven't done enough to rebalance the economy. Recoveries in the past, including under 13 years of a Labour government, saw growth and jobs in the South and the North falling behind. Now, we're trying to do this differently by investing in vital transport links, in road links, by investing in our universities, by enhancing the science base with those huge announcements you saw in the autumn statement about the Royce Institute here in Manchester, hundreds of millions of pounds going into it. All those things, I think, can create this rebalanced economy where, as we've seen over the last year, actually the Northwest is growing faster than the rest of the country.
Whilst at the same time, with the other hand, slashing council grants, so that councils like today, Manchester, saying they've got to save £50 million next year, jobs will have to go.
Well, let's look at the actual figures. I mean, Manchester City Council spent £50 million less than it actually budgeted for last year, and next year it's due to spend £50 million more than it spent last year.
Sure.
So this is important because, look, I've come on your sofa and on this programme many times over the last few years, and people have warned that somehow the spending reductions we've had to make, that any government would have had to make if you wanted to get the deficit down, would cause mayhem. They haven't.
Well, they're causing mayhem in A&E, aren't they?
Satisfaction with local government services has increased under this government. Take the police. We had to make difficult decisions. Crime here in Greater Manchester is down 20% over the last 4 years. It's not easy to do more with less, but you can.
The leaders of the police are saying it has now reached a tipping point and no more can be cut, yet more has got to be cut.
Well, crime is down 20% in Manchester. People did not think this was going to be possible, that you could reduce the spending, you could set the police free from paperwork, you could get more police on the front line, and you could see crime fall. That's what's happened. So all I'm saying, of course it's difficult, but some of the warnings that were made about the spending reductions and efficiencies necessary to get the deficit down haven't proved to be the case.
There is always a consequence to every decision, as you know better than anybody. Cuts that are made to councils result in councils cutting services like social care. Social care is cut. There's nowhere for people to go when they go to hospital. A&E is filling up. You know that better than anyone. All these cuts are having a consequence.
Well, of course, there are difficult decisions we've had to take. With the health service, we made a very clear decision.
Can you keep cutting for another 5 years?
With the health
That's
service,
what you're saying.
with the health service, we have not cut, and we will not cut. We made an exception for the NHS, and we said we're going to invest in the NHS. We're going to protect those services. An extra £13 billion has gone in. Yes, there are huge pressures this winter as the number of people going to A&E has increased. But actually, even today, we're still seeing more patients within 4 hours than we did 4 years ago. But I don't underestimate the challenge we face in getting the money to the front line, getting the doctors and nurses employed, and then also trying to help make sure that the services in the community, the GPs and the community services, are good enough so that people will use those instead of always turning to A&E.
You've commented on the Ched Evans story in the last couple of days.
Well, only because I keep being asked about it.
OK, well, OK, fine. I'll ask you about it again. Do you think anyone will ever be able to give him a second chance?
I do believe in giving people a second chance, but I also think, by the way, football clubs, not politicians, should pick football teams. But football players are role models, and I think perhaps what is unrealistic about what Ched Evans has done is just expect that you can have a rape conviction and then just straight back into professional football. Yes, he's done his time in prison, not a huge amount of time, but he's done his time, but perhaps it needs to do more to put back into the community some sense of atonement for what he's done before he restarts his career. It's not my choice who plays football for which team, but I'm being asked this question. That's my sense of
that's your view.
What perhaps needs to happen.
As you've said, you've been on this sofa many times, on this programme a number of times. Last time I spoke to you here, I asked you about leader debates. You've been spoken today saying you won't take part in a leader debate unless the Greens are involved. Ofcom have said they're not a major party, they won't be involved. Will you not take part in any debate unless the Greens are involved?
Look, there's a proper negotiation to take place about how these debates happen and all the rest of it. What I've said is I don't think it'd be right to have some minor parties, like the Liberal Democrats and UKIP, involved if you don't have other minor parties like the Greens involved. I mean, the Greens have a member of Parliament. They beat the Liberal Democrats in the last national election, the European elections. So I don't see how you can have UKIP but not the Greens. That is my very strong opinion. I couldn't have been clearer about it.
Ed Miliband thinks you're running scared.
Not at all. Look, I did the TV debates in the last election. I think they're a good
and
initiative.
You said last time that you would do them again.
No, I'd like to do them again. I think they're
so
a good...
how can we make it happen?
Well, I think you can't have some minor parties in and not other minor parties in. So I've been very clear about this. I've said that. I've also said I think it'd be good to get these debates done before the election campaign proper, because I think the election campaign should be about travelling around the country and listening and talking to people rather than just sitting in a television studio.
Well, good luck when you see Mr Clegg in the morning and he reminds you that you called him a minor party, the Liberal Democrats.
Well, we can call each other things and still manage to run a very competent and capable government.
All right. Mr Cameron, Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Thank you.